What is personalized learning and how is it different from differentiation? How do we help educators grow? How do goals, assessment, and the types of motivation impact students' use of AI? We'll answer all of this today. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Welcome in, folks. Welcome into today's episode of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. I think that you are all going to relate to what I'm going to say right now, but it is late May. I had hoped to have a brand new podcast episode for you today, but I was unable to pull that off because it is May and it is crazy right now. So many band concerts and choir concerts and baseball games and soccer games and awards assemblies and work things and crazy stuff going on at work and lawn projects and all of the things happening right now. So I don't have a brand new episode for you, but I do have something really, really awesome that I'm excited to share with you. So about a month ago, I had the good fortune of appearing on an episode of the State of Ed podcast with two awesome gentlemen, Dr. Nick Simone and Dr. Mark Isseks. I was on episode, I think it was 73 of the State of Ed podcast. They have 72 even better episodes prior to the one that I was on, featuring the likes of Rick Wormley, Laura Williams, Jen Womble from FETC. A whole bunch of just really amazing folks have been on the show. I really recommend checking out the show. And to give you a sneak preview, we're going to listen to my appearance on the State of Ed podcast. So I had so much fun talking to Mark and Nick, and I said to the guys, since this was such an awesome conversation, I really enjoyed talking to them. After the episode had been released on their platform, would it be okay if I released it in the Educational Duct Tape feed? And they were generous enough to say, yes, please do so. So I am airing this here. In the show notes is a link to the show, so you can hop over there and find the rest of their amazing episodes. I think you're going to find they're really awesome and intelligent guys. It's really great talking to them, and I think you're going to find that you want to hear their input on other topics as well, too. Speaking of which, Mark recently released a new book called Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions, which is right up my alley, that idea of empowering them and thinking about the way we do things now in this era of digital distractions. I have a copy of the book. I have not started reading it yet. It definitely is on my summer reading list, and I'll be sharing with you what I think of it. But having spoken with Mark, I'm feeling pretty confident this is going to be a really good book. So I'm eager to check that out. And like I said, I'll share about that book with you after I read it. But without further ado, let's jump into my appearance on the State of Ed podcast with the awesome Mark Isseks and Nick Simone. Here we go.
Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Mark Isseks.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How are you today, Nick?
Looking forward to our conversation very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, having a great day, and also looking forward to our conversation. Our guest today is Jake Miller. He is an ed tech and learning enthusiast who wrote Educational Duct Tape, an ed tech integration mindset, and hosts the Ed Tech News Brief and Educational Duct Tape podcasts. Jake's day job is personalized learning specialist. He previously spent 5 years as a technology integration specialist and an additional 14 years in the classroom, teaching math, science, and STEM at various grade levels. With all the changes currently going on in schools, what better time to have an ed tech specialist on the show? Jake Miller, welcome to State of Ed Podcast.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
We are super happy to have you and can't wait to pick your brain because there are many, many topics that we would love to discuss with you, since technology is just when you think that technology can't be more at forefront of the educational landscape, it becomes that all-important topic to be talking about. So let's just start by talking about your own journey here. How did you get to this place where you're a technological specialist and an ed tech specialist and a personalized learning guru? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, sure. So this is year 22 in education, I think. I've stopped counting because it just makes me feel old. But I think it's 22. I started off teaching middle school math and science. At first, thought I wanted to do it for all of my 35 years career until retirement, or 42 like my mom did. And then found that I got interested in other things as I was going. So first I got interested in teaching STEM, and then I got really interested in educational technology. First it was using it just for myself in the classroom, for how I taught, and then it was having the kids use it. That was the STEM part, really. Then I found that I really wanted to help other teachers use it because they were so overwhelmed and scared of it maybe at the time. And then I found I really enjoyed that and I really wanted to support them more. So then I shifted into a technology integration specialist or tech coach role. And then I found that I wanted to help more than just the teachers in my school. So I started presenting at local conferences and I was like, well, that's not enough. I want to do more. And then it was Twitter, and then it was a website, and then it was local conferences, and then it was podcast, and then it was all the things. And then it was a book, and it was all these things over the years. But really, it's just in the interest of helping teachers do good things for kids. And the last 3 years, I've been fortunate to fall into this role as a personalized learning specialist, which when I started it, I was like, what is personalized learning? I kind of have an idea. Like I may have been bluffing a little bit in the interview, but then once I got in it, I was like, yes, this is the thing. And this is what I'm so excited about. So been doing that for 3 years now. So it's been a journey, but I like that it's, a lot of different stops on this journey.
What did you find is the actual definition for the personalized learning specialist?
So the easiest way to summarize what personalized learning to me is it's a step beyond what is typically known as differentiation. So typically you'll see different definitions. Like we were just talking, you guys have had Rick Wormley on the podcast before. Rick would define differentiated learning pretty close to how I define personalized learning. So would probably Carol Ann Tomlinson or somebody like that. But the way most people think of differentiated learning or instruction is you're honoring the differences and variability in your learners. You're honoring their levels, you're honoring their preferences and how they learn, and maybe their things that they're find relevant and enjoyable, and you're presenting different opportunities to them. Oftentimes, you're prescribing them to certain learners. In personalized learning, we're taking it a step further and giving those learners some agency to make those choices themselves. So the teacher is maybe saying, hey, based on what I know about my kids, these are the 3 different levels of this assignment that I'm going to offer. These are the 3 different topics I'm going to offer, or 3 different modes that you could do it in, and then letting the kids go like, this is the one that's right for me. Instead of the teachers putting in the work of saying like, Mark, you'd prefer it this way, and Nick, you're currently accelerated on this topic, so let's do it this way. Giving the kids some control over that experience and letting them advocate for themselves and be autonomous and build that agency that's going to benefit them after graduation for sure.
So are you actually working with a school district directly right now?
So here in Ohio, we have educational service centers. So I work for 2 different educational service centers. Most of my work is with 5 different school districts, but every now and then I collaborate with some other ones, which I love. Like this week, we're currently recording and it's a Wednesday night, not to spoil it for the people listening that we're not live in their ears right now. But this week, I've already been with 3 different school districts in 3 different days. And I love that. I love bouncing around, working with different schools, but yet being with them often enough that I know those teachers, because you have those experiences where a great presenter maybe comes in, not that I'm comparing myself to a great presenter, but a great presenter comes in, present for one day, and then you never see him again, right? I have the nice benefit of I'll see you in a couple weeks, or I might see you on Thursday, or like I'm going to be back again soon. And so I have these longitudinal relationships with these educators where I can keep supporting them, but then I get to go and work with other educators too, which is really cool.
That's great. Does the whole state have that structure where there are, what did you call the place? Educational
service centers. Yep. So there are, every school in Ohio has to belong to one. And we provide, service centers provide a lot of different features to the schools, but one of them are curriculum consultants. Different service centers have different ones. I'm one of the few that do personalized learning in the state, but most of them have like a gifted consultant and an English consultant and things like that.
That's a great idea. So if teachers wanted to work with you, how do they organize? Do they have to go through their school to set up a meeting or?
Yeah, it's almost like a consultant at an educational service center. It's almost like a job share with the different districts. So the districts are paying for my time. So, your district might have 20 days of Jake's time, and then the teacher could use one of those 20 days or an hour out of those 20 days or something like that. But sometimes we have the opportunity to do some a la carte things and some workshops and some trainings and things like that too, which I love that just variability of different things all the time.
What do you love most about working with educators in this way?
I love the relationship building of the experience. I think I come from a family of educators. I mentioned my mom and my aunt was an educator as well. And so I've always had a profound respect for what they do and the work they put in. And then as I started working alongside them, supporting them with technology back in, 2006, let's say when Google Drive was coming out and they were like, wait, what's a cloud? What is it? Cumulonimbus or what? And seeing them in that time, but seeing like the vulnerability they were ready to admit about like not understanding things, but also the compassion they had for their kids. They just want to do the best, And so I wanted more of that. I've always just really enjoyed working with teachers ever since I first experienced providing them with supports like that. So it's the opportunity to do that. And it's the opportunity to build those relationships to support them in that way.
So let me ask this question on behalf of the people who work to support educators everywhere. The early adopters are easy. They're the low hanging fruit, right? You just whisper a great idea. They're already like running out of the room and taking it to the next iteration before you even finish the sentence. How do you start moving further and further along the continuum?
Yeah.
Getting toward, I'm not talking about the laggards, like the over my dead body folks, which hopefully is just a very small number. But like, how do you get towards the middle where you get the masses thinking differently and starting to really make those kinds of cultural shifts where change really starts to take hold in a school?
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Rogers' law of diffusion of innovation. I think I'm going to edit some words there. Rogers' law of diffusion of innovation, but it's a bell curve. And on the left, we have those innovators, those early adopters.
And then the chasm.
And then there is that chasm. And then as you move towards the center, you've got that early majority and the late majority. And then all the way over to the right, you've got that group of laggards, I think is what it says on it. And my belief is, I haven't read any specific documentation that says it's the case, but my belief is that each group can only really be impacted by the group next to them, right? So if a early adopter comes to a laggard and says, you've got to try out this AI tool, let's say, because that's something that they're going to be really intimidated by, they're not going to listen to that person at all because they don't relate to them over that topic. And so I believe, and again, I don't have any studies that back up that. That's just my belief. So I believe that you've got to let it trickle down from one group to the next group. Now, I believe it also goes the other way, too, that if a laggard has a negative experience relating to this new innovation or this new strategy or this new tech tool, and they tell that next notch up, that late majority or whatever they are, they could pull them down into essentially being a laggard. That's my belief. And so you've really got to impact them kind of one at a time. And so my goal always, if I'm working with a school district, let's say, and I go to the dreaded staff meeting and I'm presenting to the whole staff, and I know that I've got all 5 levels of that bell curve in the room with me, I know that there's nothing I could do to bring that laggard on board right now, but there are things that I could do to turn them off right now. So my goal is always to keep everybody positive. Whether or not they want to adopt it right now is fine, because sooner or later that idea is going to get to that laggard, and I don't want them to feel negative about it. And I don't want them to pull the other people down with them. So I would rather all 100% of people in that group feel positively. And maybe right now I'm just winning over the 17%, and knowing that seeing person at the 17th percentile do this is going to impact the person at the 18th percentile and the person at the 19th percentile. So I think that positivity, and that comes with relationship too. That comes with trust that they have in you when you're presenting to them or working with them.
That's really smart.
Yeah, it's a brilliant approach, and you have the perfect demeanor for it. But I also think that the model that you're working within allows you to personalize the instruction with the teachers.
Yeah, what's 100% true.
Yeah, I mean, if you put all these teachers in a room and some of them don't even know how to use Google Docs, and others are, maybe created Google Docs, it's difficult to send the same message. So I love your model and I love your approach.
Yeah.
I love the name educational duct tape. So can you just kind of take us through what that means to you and what that symbolizes or is a metaphor of?
Yeah. So years and years ago, more than a decade ago, I was a friend of mine that lives in this area and teaches university classes for pre-service teachers, had reached out to me to talk to students about educational technology. And what I wanted to say to them, because I saw all these student teachers coming into our school, just trying out whatever the new bells and whistles of technology were at that time, but they were doing it kind of without regard for why. Like, why are you using that tool? Why are you using a Kahoot right now? I don't know. The kids like it. Are you trying to build their DOK knowledge? Are you trying to teach them some vocabulary? Are you trying to review something? Like, why are you doing that? And they didn't really have a reason. So when I talked to that class, I really wanted to talk to them about how we use educational technology as tools to support us in achieving pedagogical or teacher goals or solving problems or meeting needs. And so I gave him that presentation. And then afterwards, I said to the teacher, I said, I think I want to continue to do this work and speak to people about this exact topic. He said, what do you think? And he said, yeah, that's great. Except the title that you gave for the talk, which was something like viewing educational technology tools as things that can help us achieve. Well, it was like a really long name, right? He's like, that title that you gave, it needs to be sexier if you're going to keep doing this. And soon thereafter, my kids are now 15, 13, and 11, but they were 5, 3, and 1 or something like that at this time. We had an inflatable bounce house in our house, and my kids loved playing in this inflatable bounce house. And one day I went to fill it up for them and it sprung a leak. It was pushing air out of it. And we had thrown away the patch kit years ago because we didn't know what it was. We were just laying on the floor with our kids' toys. So we had no patch kit. And what I discovered was that duct tape was a really good patch for the bounce house. And I started kind of thinking about that idea about how duct tape by itself, it's just a thing, right? But when it's solving a problem for us, then it's super powerful and super impactful. And so that became my metaphor that educational technology is our educational duct tape. It is our thing. It's our tool that solves problems for us. Sometimes it sounds like I'm saying that educational technology is just by default non-elegant, like duct tape is, but that doesn't mean that can't be elegant, right? There's some really sophisticated ed tech out there, but the important part is it's just a tool. That tool that you're using and excited about is worthless or nothing if you're not focusing on achieving some specific pedagogical benefit.
Right. Right.
Well stated. Well, we might as well get to AI by now, right, Jake? So where's your comfort level and optimism regarding the integration of AI in education?
Yes is my answer because there's no, I don't even know. I'm like all over the place. I'm currently reading this book, More Than Words by John Warner. Have you guys heard of it?
I have not.
I just know
the song from the 80s.
Right. It has nothing to do with the song.
Okay.
I sent it to a friend today. I said, I'm reading this book. And she sent me a video of Extreme performing the song.
There it is, right.
Band. And then I said, no, this version. And I sent back, there's a version of Jimmy Fallon and Jack Black performing it, which is spot on and makes it hysterical. But no, it has nothing to do with the song. I actually heard of it through, we mentioned Rick Wormley earlier. Wormley wrote one of the, I don't know, one of the quotes in the book and put it out on his social media. And that's the first place I heard it. And then I heard it on a podcast. I believe it was the Search Engine podcast. And I heard it somewhere else too. And I was like, I keep hearing about this book and I keep being really excited about it. I think I need to read this. And so I'm 2 or 3 chapters in right now. But it's talking about how the written language words are more than words, right? So something like ChatGPT or any large language model does a great job of writing words. Right. And it does a great job of generating words that it thinks we're going to like. But that's not what the process of writing is about. Right. Writing isn't just about writing words. It's about more than the words. And so I think when I think about AI, I am excited about the possibilities of it. I use it a lot, but I think we need to go back to that duct tape idea and really think about what are we trying to achieve here? What are we trying to get across with what we're doing here? I saw a guy named Dave Stewart Jr. speak recently, and Dave referenced this metaphor that he had recently heard from somebody else that was, if I want to get really strong and I go to the gym to lift weights and I bring a forklift with me and I load the weights on the forklift and have the forklift take the weights up and down for me, is that okay? And Dave didn't say this next part. I was like waiting on the edge of my seat for him to say it. I think he was being a writer and letting me think it instead of him saying it. But the point is, the goal wasn't to lift the weights, right? The goal was to get stronger. And so I think we have to keep that in mind with AI. What is the AI? What is our goal when we're using it? So if, for example, we're using a tool like School AI and we want our kids to do some self-assessment and reflection about a certain topic, and School AI is kind of like a tutor helping them do that, that's, I think, a pretty great use of AI, right? Because it's helping us achieve the goal. But if a kid's going to Claude, let's say a large language model, and saying, write this essay for me, then the kid's not getting stronger, like in that weightlifting metaphor. So we just have to be really mindful about that. I think that requires a couple things too. One is, which is part of what this book is talking about, More Than Words, is changing the way we think about writing in school to make it so it's actually relevant and meaningful and important and motivational for kids, right? But it also means that we need to be talking to our kids about this, talking about how we use AI, how we don't use AI, and our reasoning behind it and why some uses are okay and other uses are not okay.
Can I take that one step further or maybe add a third prong? I think part of it also in this reflection that you're talking about is we have for so long structured school around the exchange for like your compliance for points.
Yes, yeah.
So we have taught students that this is the all-important thing. You need your points to get your credits. You need your credits to get your diploma. You need your diploma to have the life that you are dreaming of having. So they're just playing by the rules that we have created.
100%.
So when we say write an essay, they're thinking I need points. The technology is giving them a shortcut to help them get the points that they want. That's how they're trying to win the game. if we redirect the focus to like what's really important, it's about learning. It's about getting stronger, just like you said. It's about building up those skills. So we have to really take a strong look at what we're doing and the carrots and the sticks that we're bringing into the educational model, because I think rhetorically have all the right messages, but are we historically creating the right frameworks to get the outcomes that we're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. There's some work that I got really excited about through. So in my personalized learning work, as I was this is year 3 in it, and now I feel like I know most of the stuff, right? Not all of the stuff. I'm still learning. But early on, I was just kind of scratching the surface and learning about all the different things. And one part of personalized learning is students setting goals. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What's a good goal? What does that look like? And so as I was learning about goal setting, I learned about the 2 different orientations that a goal could have. One is a mastery goal, and one is a performance-oriented or mastery-oriented goals. And a performance-oriented goal is exactly what you're saying. If your goal is the A or the finished essay or lifting the weights, the studies have shown that you're going to try to do those things by any means necessary, right?
That's right.
We all have a border of what we will and won't do, but some people in that situation, if they could cheat, they'll just cheat, right? By any means necessary, they want to achieve that goal. And so what you're saying is we need to get away from these performance-oriented goals and focus on mastery-oriented goals, which is saying I'm trying to build a skill here. I'm trying to get better at something. And the studies have also shown that if you're doing that, then you're less likely to do means of like cheating, for example, to get there, because cheating doesn't achieve that goal. So, for example, for me, I'm 45 years old. I'm getting to the age of life where I need to take care of my body and make sure I'm strong, right? I'm not just trying to show up looking good in a bathing suit at the lake this summer. Like, I need to just take care of myself as I get older. And so when I work out, it doesn't make sense for me to use a forklift because my goal is not lifting the weights. Similarly, it doesn't make sense for me to use steroids because my goal is not how I look with my shirt off. My goal is to be strong and healthy, and steroids won't help with that. Forklift won't help with that. Lifting some weights and going for a run on the treadmill, those things will help with that. So my goal is mastery-oriented, not performance-oriented. I think that's the biggest problem with AI, but it's a problem we've been dealing with in education for decades, maybe a century, right? It's all of the problems we've had come out of that. That's the way we've built education as a system.
But cheating has never been so easy.
Yeah, right?
That's part of it. And one of the things that I am concerned about is I try to, as Nick will hopefully say, I try to remain very optimistic about education because I believe it's the most important and most valuable gift that we can give our kids. It's essential to everything. But I fear what I'm calling like the AI infinite loop, which is the teacher uses AI to generate the assignment, the student uses AI to complete the assignment, and the teacher uses AI to grade the assignment. And the loop is complete, and not a single human being has actually contributed to the work. Yeah. And I feel like we're like on the cusp of that very, very thing happening. And it's a major concern because once we get on that hamster wheel, I don't know how easy it's going to be to get off that hamster wheel.
Yeah. I think it's super concerning too, and I think it is happening in some places and in some classrooms. And the issue with what you're saying there is, again, the student has a performance-oriented goal, which is complete this task, and the teacher has a performance-oriented goal, which is have kids do the task, right? Nobody in that situation has a mastery-oriented goal of the kid mastering a skill and the teacher supporting them in mastering the skill. I don't think that all AI use is bad. For example, I think teachers using it for some grading, I actually don't think that's horrible. Like, I want them to do as much grading as they possibly have time for within reason. But if we can give kids more feedback faster, right, and take some time off of teachers' plates so that they can work with those kids, I'm okay with it. The issue is that's a mastery-oriented goal of supporting those kids, and that's the change that needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if the grading, like you said, if that allows teachers to have more time to meet with kids and personalized the feedback, because I was giving a professional development session 2 days ago, and an exceptional teacher who I know, she said her concern is if the AI is just grading the papers, how do you even know how your students are improving? You have to be able to read their work and see what they're submitting so that you can give them that type of feedback. So if you just read the feedback, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Yeah. I think there has to be some teacher grading, and then we might need to supplement it with some of this AI done. But certainly, if it's all AI done, we're creating some major problems there. Or if it's all AI done and the teacher doesn't even look at the data, that's a problem. And if the kid doesn't look at the data, that's a problem.
That's true also, because they could just have it graded and then send the grades to the grade book and they haven't even taken any interest in the performance.
I'm sure it's already happening.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to some of the problems we're talking about there, where the grade has nothing. We're doing assessment wrong. If that's what we're doing, we're using assessment as a way to calculate grades instead of a way to inform instruction and grow learners who are mastering skills. And so if all the kid sees it as is a way to get a grade, and all the teacher sees it as is it a way to more quickly enter the grade, essentially, then we're looking at assessment wrong, and the AI fits just fine there. Why not, right? It shouldn't, but yeah.
Well, that's where my optimism lies, with the hope that AI is going to push us to really restructure how we approach education.
Yeah, I think the power's there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm concerned about the writing and the copying of the essays, like Mark said, it's just easier now. But people have always cheated.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kids have never not had an era where they weren't trying to take the easy way out. But it's it's as quick as hitting a button these days.
Yep. Wormley calls it in a recent paper on AMLE. Though I get like a bingo board of like Wormley mentions. It's three in one interview.
Are we playing the whole card or just the frame?
I don't know. I don't know how it works. I have 3 Wormleys against your. I don't even know. But he wrote a great article for AMLE recently, and he calls it academic cosplay. So essentially, like when we're doing things in the classroom, that's wearing the costume of learning, but not actually doing the learning. And we don't want to play academic cosplay. I think that's a brilliant term.
He's so good at that. I'm envious of how he comes up with those things. So obviously we're talking about technology. Clearly technology is a massive distraction for our students, and it's more and more daunting for teachers to have to overcome distracted students and engage them. So what are your words of wisdom when you're working with educators to help them have the tools and support them in trying to figure out how to motivate students to block out maybe not all of that noise, but a lot of that noise, so they can kind of get focused on the task in hand and learn in their classrooms?
Yeah. I do think for a lot of our kids, some of that blocking out of the distractions we might have to do for them. So schools that have done, for example, my oldest son's school, every classroom they walk into, there's a caddy at the front of the room. They put their phone in there. They get it back after class. They could check their messages in between class. If they're taking pictures of something during the lesson, they can go grab it. Otherwise, they can't use it. I think we do, like, they're addictive devices. And so we have to an extent, step in for those kids and help them out as they're building those skills of doing it themselves. I think there's a little bit of that. And the other part just goes back to true motivation and the difference between, first of all, between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So if everything we're doing in school is an extrinsic motivator, if we're trying to motivate them with grades and punishments, carrots and sticks, as you said before, we're not going to motivate them very well. And then they're going to be really apt to be distracted by the technology, right? Whereas if we could motivate them intrinsically, help them want to learn, help them see this, self-assess and want to grow and want to get better at things, develop a growth mindset in our classroom, see learning as an opportunity to take some risks and make some mistakes and then learn from them. If we could shift to that, then we get more motivation because it's intrinsic. And then we see them being less apt to go to those distractions. Now, whenever I talk with teachers, I have to tell them, I understand that we're not in a utopia. This is reality. These are children. These are real children and real teenagers. And I can't just say, well, make them intrinsically motivated and then they'll put their phones away. And the teachers are like, yeah, whatever, right? Because I know that's not true. One thing, do you guys know the self-determination theory continuum that DC and I forget the other author of it that breaks up the levels of extrinsic motivation? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, vaguely, but please refresh our memories.
So this is another thing that as I was learning about the work that I do, I was like, I need to understand this. And the way I bring it back to all the time is like, I don't know the names of the different levels off the top of my head, but I bring it back to chores. So my own kids, I got 3 of them with chores. I have to force them to do it, right? They don't fight back and they do it, but I have to go like, hey, empty the dishwasher. Hey, I told you 10 minutes ago, empty the dishwasher. Get up and go empty the dishwasher. And then they'll do it. Now, me with chores, I don't like to do chores. I'm not very motivated to do chores, but I know that if I don't clean that bathroom, my wife's going to clean that bathroom and I'm going to feel guilty about it. So I have kind of taken on her goal, right? And I'm doing it for that reason. So that's a step up in terms of motivation. It's still extrinsic, right? I'm so motivated by her desire to do it, but she's not forcing me anymore. The next notch up is her, right? She doesn't want to clean the bathroom, but she takes pride out of it being clean and she desires it being clean. She wants it to be clean. So even though she's not intrinsically motivated to clean it, she is more motivated because she desires that. And that's like a kid starting to desire the learning. right? They wouldn't do it if it weren't a grade,
Yeah, we're just going to leave the doors of the school open, and if you just want to come on in,
Right. That's not realistic. That
Exactly.
true intrinsic motivation is not realistic in most places. But if we can get them excited about the learning, they might do it. Now, the next notch up is my neighbor. This guy mows his lawn twice a week normally. Like we're about to be ready for lawn mowing, I think, next week in Ohio. I bet he mows it twice next week. And he
How
mows
fast does the grass grow in Ohio?
Not very. And he mows it both ways. He creates the plus lines,
the diamond cut, like
he's on a
Major
baseball
League
field.
outfield.
Right, for sure. He does. And one day I asked him, what is with you and the lawn mowing? And he said, that's my happy place, man. I enjoy it. I've got 4 kids and a wife. I come home from work. All of the sports, we're going to all of the places. There's all of the things to do. There's the dinners to cook and the things to talk about. And I just plug in my headphones and I go outside and I mow the lawn, right? Because he's actually enjoying the learning. So that's the next step up. My wife doesn't enjoy cleaning that bathroom. She enjoys having it done. My neighbor enjoys the process of mowing the lawn. Now, I will point out that I haven't seen him mow his lawn in 6 weeks. 6 months, since the weather changed, right? He could be out there mowing in the winter, but he's not, because it's still a little bit of extrinsic motivation. He still needs the grass to grow to tell him to go mow. He could potentially just mow nothing if he enjoys it that much, but that's still a little bit extrinsic motivation. So my question always is, how do we shift kids that direction, right? Mm-hmm. How do we make them value the goals? How do we make them value completion of the goals? How do we make them value the learning? How do we make them enjoy the process? They still might not choose to do it, but how do we shift them in that direction? That's what I talk about. That has nothing to do with ed tech either. But nowadays, everything we do, we can do with ed tech. But I remember when I first started teaching 22 years ago, just using technology made kids excited, right? They wanted to do it because it was technology.
Yes,
Nowadays, that's not the case. So how do we shift them in that direction to do that? I don't know. Where are you guys at on goals? Or on chores? How are you doing your chores, Nick? Are you a good chore doer?
Oh, if it's on a list, yes, I will do it. So that's not a problem at all. But I love what you just said about, the tech, like you referenced Kahoot before.
Yeah.
Kahoot is nice. Yeah. But if you do Kahoot for every unit,
yes,
at some point it becomes stale.
Yeah, for sure.
And, there was a time where even if you played like a 5-minute video in class, the kids would get so excited. Oh my God, we're going to watch a video right now. Now video is take out my phone time and tell me when it's over.
Yeah, for sure. So you got to embed questions to keep them engaged.
Yeah, when I used to wheel in the laser disc player, it was the roar that would come over the crowd.
Yeah, so I think you're right. You have to build up that intrinsic motivation. And of course, you can use the technology to enhance that, but it's not going to do it all by itself.
Yeah, certainly.
Just to build off of Nick's point, some technology is really bells and whistles, and other forms of ed tech is really more transformative. So how do you direct people towards the transformative technology and maybe a little bit away from the bells and whistles technology? And how do you teach them how to discern the difference between the two on their own?
Yeah, I try to always start the conversation with what they're trying to achieve. Like, what's your goal? What's your problem? What's your task? Which takes us back to what educational duct tape was as a name, is you don't just choose to use duct tape. Whereas that student teacher was just choosing to use Kahoot. You choose to do a formative assessment, or you choose to, have kids share with each other, or you choose to engage them in some exploration of a topic, or whatever it might be. You have your pedagogical goal, and then you identify the tool. So I think if we always start with that step, then they're more likely to choose a technology that's going to do those things. And so whatever the goal is, if we start with a goal, then we're more certain that we're not just doing bells and whistles,
Yeah. It's such great advice. I think a lot of teachers say, let me find the tool and then figure out what my goal is. But it really, like you said, should be the other way around.
Yeah,
What's my goal? What's my purpose in the lesson? Right. And then how can I achieve that best? Maybe it's with this tool. Maybe it's with another tool. Maybe it doesn't require any technology.
Yeah.
And I think also part of it is, here's how I used to teach it. So now I have this new tool. So let me just integrate what I taught and just dump it into this new thing, whether it's Kahoot or whether it's PowerPoint or whether, go along the continuum of technology over the last 20 years. But that's not necessarily making it more engaging or making it more palpable for kids or compelling, and that goes back to like the SAMR model, right? Which is like substituting. So instead of the overhead projector, I'll put it on the Proxima. Instead of the Proxima, I'll put it on a flat screen TV. Instead of the flat screen TV, it'll be on a one-to-one tablet. Instead of the one-to-one tablet, soon it'll be in the Meta glasses,
Yeah.
But it's still the same packet or the same handout that was written in 2006 or 1996.
Yeah, right. And you've just added bells and whistles to it and made it fancier. Now, if you had identified that in the past time that you used it, there were some difficulties, like you had some Spanish-speaking students in class that couldn't access the paper, then putting in a technology tool that had translation, then you're solving a problem.
Of course.
If you had identified that you have some kids that are reading at a lower level, then using a technology tool is going to let you translate it. But if you don't have any of those issues you're trying to resolve, you really are just substituting.
That goes back to the intentionality that you've been talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
So now can I hire you for like an hour session so you can give me some personalized learning?
Yes, I'm ready. Whenever you're ready.
With my teaching? No, because you got me all inspired now just to even look at the way I've been working with my own teachers.
Well, to that point, that's why I think that instructional coaching is really the next step that needs to happen in more schools. We don't see a lot of instructional coaches doing true instructional coaching. I know myself in my past technology role with the school, I wanted to be more of a coach role. It never got to that point. And I know a lot of my friends that work as technology directors or specialists in schools don't really get to do true coaching. They're just going, hey, did you see the new thing that came out on Magic School? And they're just throwing out these exciting tools without knowing what the problems are. And that's not the coaches, the coach's fault, the tech person's fault. They just don't have that opportunity to have that relationship. What really needs to happen, I think, is talking to that teacher and saying, what are you working on? Right. So talking to Nick and saying, like, what's that struggle you're having in your classroom? What could be better? And if he says, like, I just don't know if my kids are understanding the lesson while I'm teaching it, then I could suggest some formative assessment ideas. I could say, well, let's try Pear Deck so you could hear from every kid while you're doing it. Or let's try Nearpod. And so I could put in place, I could suggest those tech tools that I know with my expertise based on what you actually want, which, thinking about how we talked about motivation earlier, you as a teacher are going to be more motivated to listen to me and implement it because it pertains back to your own actual problem. So it's that same thing that we talk about with our kids. You're more likely to do that chore because you value the result.
Yeah, it's critical. Just Mark and I, early on, we interviewed someone from a school district near us, and her job was to simply meet one-to-one with teachers. She had her Google Calendar. Teachers signed up, half-hour slot during their free period. She went to the elementary school, the middle school, the high school. That was her job. Happens to be one of the wealthiest districts in our area. But that really is what needs to happen, because that's when the best professional development is going to take place.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's driven by that teacher.
Right.
They're talking and somebody's listening and somebody's offering expertise where they need, but really it's driven by the teacher. That's what's so powerful.
It's not just the early adapters that are looking for that help.
Yeah.
I really think there's an overwhelming number of teachers that would love that opportunity, but they want it to be done conveniently.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be force-fed, after just an after-school meeting where everybody's going to. So I think it would be a great model if it can be replicated. But you guys are doing a great job in your state, because that is a nice program that you're part of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, as I was listening to your response before, Jake, I was thinking about this metaphor, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, so I know like the least about farming maybe of anybody in America. But like I know enough to know that it's not just about throwing seeds on the ground, right? There has to be a system. You have to drill down and create the proper depth for the seeds. You have to have the proper organization for the seeds. You have to have the proper watering of the seeds and all of these different steps. And I think a lot of times with what you're saying is like, okay, so here's technology. We're going to sprinkle seeds and they'll grow, because that's what happens with seeds. But farming is a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And a lot more scientific than that, and a lot more specific and intentional than that. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Whereas there's a lot of drive-by help, which is not without its value, but it's not nearly making the impact and having the level of effectiveness as what you're espousing here with your kind of pedagogical mindset and your duct tape approach to things.
Yeah.
Which is so smart and so needed.
Yeah, thanks. And to think about that farming idea, some farms and some soil and some ecosystems in some areas are good for growing corn and others are not, for example. And some farms and areas are going to need more water and some are going to need less water and things like that. And I think the same is true of our teachers. Some of them are going to love using a tool like Magic School and others are not, right? And it's not a good fit for them. And to your point earlier, I think Nick said it earlier about Kahoot, we don't really want them all doing the same thing anyhow, because that's when it gets boring if everybody's doing it. So it's best for that's why it's hard to have a presenter come into a school and talk about a certain technology tool, because we really don't want every teacher in that school using it, number one. And then number two, it's not actually the right tool for all of them because they don't have the problem or the lens or whatever that yields it or that needs it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've shared so many wonderful ideas, and I know that Nick and I could definitely talk to you forever, but we do want to respect your time. I just want to ask one more question before we wrap up. So with wearable technology being on the cusp of the next huge thing, which is like it's hard to imagine that we're going to first go through a next huge thing since we just got completely sideswiped with large language models, not even 2.5 years ago at this point. To what extent is AR and VR going to be like the next plateau or the next hill that we climb, or do you think we're going to miss that? What's your take on that? Because of these glasses and the integration, do you think that's going to make its way into our classroom in a profound way, or do you think it's going to be like a passing fad?
I think I'm just scared. I don't know. I'm not.
You're supposed to be the optimist here,
yes,
Jake.
You're
killing us.
So you said you were talking earlier about the SAMR model and the substitutions, and you talked about going from the video to the tablet to the screen in front of the room, and then you went to the wearable Meta glasses or whatever. And I just kind of cringed a little bit because how crazy will that be when we get there? But I think the same problems will be present when this happens. It's surely going to be a disruptor. I don't know how big of a disruptor it'll be, but the same problems will be there where kids are distracted by those devices if they don't care about the learning. Right? Kids are likely to use those devices to cheat if they're motivated only by the grade and by completing the work, by the carrots, by the sticks. So it's going to be the same sets of problems that we're dealing with AI, that we dealt with cell phones, that we dealt with Wikipedia, with the internet, with Chromebooks. Those same sets of problems are going to present themselves with these wearable technologies. The additional problem is it's going to be really hard to tell when kids are using them and not. So we really have to build our environments so that the kids don't want to use them, I think, is the most important part.
Is that a good enough answer for you, Mark?
Does that count?
I love it. I'll be replaying that one a few times.
Nice.
That's amazing. Jake, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights and your wisdom and your understanding of technology, because it's such a critical viewpoint at this juncture in education. We really need more voices like yours.
Oh, thank you, guys. I appreciate being on. I'm a huge fan of this show, and I'm excited to get to talk to you guys.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed speaking with you. And you definitely, like I said, you got me inspired to do a few different things in the classroom.
Love it. Thank you.
So if you'd like to catch up on previous episodes of State of Ed, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. You can also find us on the web at stateofedpodcast.com, where you'll find links to what we've discussed, including how to reach Jake on social media and on the web. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mark Isseks or markisseks.com, on YouTube at Edupyro, EDUPYRO. And also check out Jake's book, and you can check out my book, Captivate, Engaging and Empowering Students in a World of Digital Distractions, available on Amazon. So, and please be sure to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the book, about the podcast, and anything else education related. Jake Miller, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening. And I'm selfishly happy that your son's baseball game was rained out so you could keep our appointment here with us this evening. It was such a treat to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.